get this party started. So welcome everybody. Those that I know, a number of you have been to my workshops before. For those that haven't, the way that we work is there's 6 workshops in the series. They repeat every 3 months, and this is the last one of the current cycle, end of September, and then they begin again sort of October through to December. And as you see there, we cover topics such as finance, marketing, sales, customer and team. And obviously today's is all about time management. How do we get the most out of our time? And I used to call this self-mastery because a lot of it is about how we control ourselves. You know, there is no such thing as time management. You can't manage time. You know, there's 24 hours in a day. Successful people have 24 hours. Unsuccessful people have 24 hours. The difference is successful people do more with their 24 hours than unsuccessful people. Okay, and as we'll see, you know, there's some techniques to actually help us with our discipline, our self-control, and how we actually manage this as we go through. So this is what we're going to be covering: goal setting, a little bit on limiting beliefs, what we think about time, and then we're going to get into a few techniques that I've used over the 15 odd years that I've been coaching to help people with that process of controlling what they do and getting more done each day. So what I'd like you to just make a note of, and if you want to share that in the chat box, please do, because I just want to make sure I do cover as many thoughts as we can. I've been through a few of you. But if there was one key thing that you wanted to get out of today, you know, around time management, what would that be? How could I help you best to make sure you come out of here with a lot of value, but more importantly, something to actually improve where you are with your time management? So have a think about it and then just sort of write it down. So Zan, more spare time, okay? So when we say spare time, I'm assuming that's time to do the things you want to do. So rather than you know, doing the work side of things, actual, you know, family life, personal life, time to do hobbies, that sort of thing. Creative space, excellent. So that's what you want to do, is just have that time to think, time to do what you want to do. Plan a week effectively. Good, Harvey. Yeah, that's really important. I've got a good technique towards the end to help you with that one. Achieve more. Yep, that's definitely what we've all got to do. More productive the time that we have. Cool. Yep, I'll cover that, I'm pretty sure. Discipline. Yep, that is a big part of it. Prioritizing, managing, and focus on the important rather than urgent tasks. Yep, we'll be going straight into that one. So that's really key. Cool. Good. Any more? That's a good. I think that's covered probably most bases of you know, and you know, whatever you've written, you probably look at that list and think, yeah, I've got some, you know, some of those challenges are my challenges as well. And for some of you, it'll be the whole list will be all of your challenges. So what we need to sort of think about is, when we come into time management, is our ability to set goals is the #1 factor in time management. Yeah, there's been studies for many, many years. A great book is Stephen Covey's Highly Effective 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, if anybody's read that. And I'll come on to a couple of his thoughts later on. But the ability to actually understand what the goals are, what is important, how do I actually get clarity around what I'm trying to do? Now, what I've found it when we're running small businesses is, because we wear so many hats, we've got so many things to do, this actual setting what the goal is becomes more difficult. If you can remember back to when you had a job, or you know, if you are still working, you know, generally when you have a job, you have one key thing to do, one key responsibility. Then sort of planning becomes easy. You know, it's a relatively easy thing to do. I've just got to get this thing done. Once it's done, then, you know, I've got time to relax. I've got time to do other things. The problem we have when we run small businesses or work in small businesses is we wear many hats, and there is always more stuff to get done than can ever get done. Okay, and that's something you've really got to understand, that the to-do list does not empty. There will always be more on the to-do list than you can actually physically fit into a week. Therefore, when we come to actually setting our sort of diaries and our focus, is we've got to get better at setting goals and getting clarity around what our priorities are. So, right, my computer's just... It's very clever. It just keeps opening Outlook. So there we go. So we've got to understand why goals are important. The better we can get at goal setting and better we can get at focusing on what we actually want to achieve, the more likely we're going to do this. So this little diagram here comes from a guy called Jim Collins. Wrote some brilliant books. The one this comes from is Good to Great. So what makes great companies? And when he looked at it, he said all companies have real clarity around their core values. They have a clear purpose as to why they're in business. And then they set targets and goals and down to the actions and then the schedule. So everything that they do is actually linked together. One second. So everything they do is linked down to the direction in which they're going. So as business owners, we've got to make sure that when we're setting goals, they start from the big goal. Where does my business need to be, or where do I want it to be in a year's time, 5 years' time, 10 years' time? Okay, because if we haven't got clarity around the goal at that level, then setting the smaller goals becomes more difficult. We become more and more reactive in the day-to-day. So as we move, so if I can, my pen works. So as we move up here, this becomes more and more busy. The day-to-day stuff gets in the way. Down here, so at this level, we're at that sort of helicopter view. We're looking down on the organisation and we can see the bigger picture. So if our bigger picture isn't right, then it's very difficult to make sure we're going in the right direction here. So it's a bit like organising a holiday, and actually having no idea where we're going to go for a holiday. And therefore, when it actually comes to the holiday, well, what do? Well, anything. I have no idea. So we've just become busy doing stuff rather than towards the big picture. So we've got to be thinking, in our businesses, where are we going to be in a year, 5 years, 10 years time? And ultimately, if we own the business, what do we want out of the business? Do we want, we don't want a job for life. You don't want to be working until we're 60, 70, 80 years old, if we can help it. What we want to do is build a business that gives us what we actually want. If we're employed in the business, I know some of you guys are working for business owners, we should be clear what our progression in the business is. Where do I want to be? Do I want to get promotion within the business? At what level? How am I going to drive my own personal goals within the organisation in which I'm working? So having that clarity is very, very important. And once we've done that, we're really tapping into what makes our brains work. Okay, so this is a little diagram here of how the human brain works. And there's a very key part to our brain, which is this bit here, which sits about here, which is the reticular activating system, or we tend to sort of abbreviate it to our RAS. So a reticular activating system takes in all the information from our eyes, our ears, and our sort of touch and feel, and it acts as a filter. Okay, it filters out what we don't want, what we don't need to actually process in our brain. So I want you to do a little exercise where you're sort of sitting at the moment at home. I want you to look around the room And I want you to count the number of red things you see. So just look around the room, how many red things you see, and just type that into the chat box. Okay, just whichever number it is, just hit the number in the chat box and press enter. So how many red things do you see? Okay, so Luke's got 1, Zan's 7. He's wearing one of them, which is good. 24. So that's a good bit of counting there. So 2, 5. Damon's gone one better, 27, 15. Cool. Okay, so now after you've typed that in, I want you to just to look at the screen. So just look at me. Okay, back in the room, look at me. How many green things did you see? So just type how many green things you saw. Don't look around again. Just type how many green things you saw. So Conrad saw 9. That's pretty good. Yeah, a lot of people didn't see any at all. So the key to this is you saw them. Okay, apart from Conrad, who's got an amazing power of perception. He can see 27 red things and 9 green things in one go. So the majority of people will look around the room and actually won't have recognized any of the green things, because I set your reticular activating system to look for red things. And that's what you did. Our brains are good at doing one thing at one time. Blokes more than women. Women can do multiple things. Yeah, but the majority of us, it's 1 or 2 things that is what I focus on. So if I set your reticular activating system to look for red things, then that's what you do. And that's why we have to set goals. Because if we don't set goals, we miss the stuff that is important. We get easily sidetracked in all sorts of other things. And if we're not working towards our own goals, then we're going to be working towards other people's goals. Okay, and the whole thing about discipline, all the things that you want for time management, is you want time for yourself to do the things you want to do. So therefore, you've got to be clear what the goal is, and then you can actually focus on what you're actually going after. And the best people at time management are those that are so clear on their goals, everything else falls into place. Think about an Olympic athlete. If your sole goal was to win an Olympic gold medal, how good would your time discipline be? Pretty good, wouldn't it? Yeah, you would know. I get up at 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning. I have my sort of pre-training diet. Yeah, I have the clothes that I'm going to wear. It's all laid out for me. I don't get up in the morning and go, oh, do you know what I feel like doing today? Oh, the phone rings, an email goes, and suddenly I'm off doing something else. No, if you're that clear with what the goal is, you become ultra disciplined, because you know that goal is so important. I've got to do everything in my power to actually achieve it. So the first thing we've really got to do is be able to set goals, the bigger picture ones, and then break those down into smaller chunks. So we generally go, 5 years, 1 year, 90 days, a month, a week, a day, an hour. Okay, so bring it back down from those the high level goals into shorter term goals. The other thing to think that when we do set goals, there are 3 types of goals that we can set. And again, it's based on the way that the brain works. So the reticular activating system is part of our brain called the reptilian brain. It's our fight or flight brain. It's our move away from pain brain. It's there to keep us safe. Now, these goals are generally quite simple. I don't want. I don't want to be hungry. I don't want to be in pain. I don't want to be homeless. So they move us away quite quickly. And we generally don't need to write these goals down. Okay, if you're in real severe pain, the actual thought of actually writing a goal down and what you want, you just don't really do. You just know that you're in pain, and therefore you do what it takes. And this is what I find a lot of people in business is how they started their business. They started their business because they were made redundant. They left working for an idiot boss. Something happened that made them start the business, and then they jumped on the hamster wheel and they started running around the hamster wheel. Okay, and that's good to get the momentum going, but once we've got to a certain level, then that form of goal setting starts to reduce. And we go into what I call a comfort zone. We're okay, we're doing all right, but we lose focus on where we actually want to be in the future. So what we've got to do is engage the second level of our brain function, which is what we call the limbic system. And the limbic system is about towards, what do I actually want? So if I'm sitting there going, I don't want to be busy, I don't want to be doing loads of stuff, well, fine. But what do you want? What does the perfect week look like for you? What are your personal goals? What are your business goals? What are those goals that you actually want? And it's easy to say this, but it's actually quite difficult. Many years ago, when I started coaching and we were sort of learning this stuff, I was given a blank sheet of paper to write down, the sort of the 100 things that I wanted to do before I died. The typical sort of bucket list. So I was 38 years old, given this sort of list of all the things, if you had unlimited wealth, there was no, you knew you couldn't fail, what is it that you would want? And I sat in a group of 35 people and with a blank sheet of paper, and I had no idea. Absolutely no idea what I wanted. 38 years old, not really knowing what I wanted in life. And everyone around me was writing stuff down and they were turning pages over. It's like that exam moment when you're sitting there with an exam question, and everyone else in the class is writing stuff and you've got no idea how to answer it. And the more you think about it, the more frustrated and the more mental block you get. And it went back to my exam training was, the best thing when you get that is just write something down. Doesn't matter what it is, just start writing, and then to sort of, then you focus on writing stuff rather than what you're not writing. And after about half an hour, I started writing things down, and eventually, in the next second half an hour, I wrote about 7 pages. Because it was in there, it's just I hadn't given it any thought, any time, any effort in the last 20 odd years, since probably I was a teenager, of actually what it is I wanted in life. So this is not always easy. For some of us, it really is. I know a couple of you here, I won't mention any names, this is really, you've worked a lot hard on this and you've got clarity around what it is. But for many of us, actually setting goals of what we want is very difficult. But the better we can get at it, it's like a muscle. If we can work that muscle, then it will grow stronger and stronger and stronger. And sometimes we've got to start with small goals because they're easier for us to focus on, and then we build up to bigger goals as we go. So once we've got that vision of what we want, we do get to a point where we've got everything that we could possibly want. It's not really driving us forwards anymore. And at that point, we have to switch over from what I would call selfish goals, which is how I feel, into purpose-led goals. So these are now goals not for us, these are goals for other people. Now that might be, I know a few of you have said, you've got grandkids and kids, this might be goals for them, and actually helping your kids achieve more, you feel far better doing that than you ever do actually doing things for yourself. And this is what we call high-level brain function. This comes out of our neocortex, about our thinking brain, and it's all about what we do for others rather than what we do for ourselves. So if you look at people like Bill Gates, he started off with a need, he needed a job. He then had some really high want goals. He wanted the boats and the planes, and so he built a big organization around that. Now, does he need to earn any more money? No. But his purpose now is to cure the world of malaria. So he's got a massive high purpose, which keeps him motivated, keeps him on track, keeps him disciplined, moving towards something rather than reacting to what's going on around him. So it doesn't matter where we are. We could still be in a pain goal. Great. Just get clarity around what it is you're trying to achieve. If it's a want goal, then again, get clarity around it. If it's for purpose for others, get clarity around it. It doesn't matter at what level we are, as long as we're clear what our goal actually is, because that's what drives us forwards. That's what allows us to identify what's important in our life, yeah, and what we should be spending our time doing. Once we've got goals, what I find a lot of people's goals are fluffy goals. Okay, I want to be rich. I want to be happy. I want more time. Okay, these are fluffy goals. There's no substance to them. What we have to do, and a lot of you would have heard the acronym SMART: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, in a time frame. So we've got to make them SMART, but I have a little take on that. I changed that to inspiring and emotional. So they become Smarty goals. So if you're old enough, you remember the old advert with Smarties? Smarties have the answer. Yes, you do, Zan. Yes, you do. So I remember time before Blue Smarties, when Blue Smarties didn't exist. So there you go. That's how old I am. So having those, specific goals, make it, often goals, certainly in business, are number based. Yeah, it's got to be measurable. I've got to be able to track my progress towards that goal. Yeah, it's got to be achievable and realistic within the time frame. And the one thing I find that people fail time and time again is setting a time in which they're going to achieve something. Oh, I'll get that done by, next week, next month. If you don't commit to a date and a time, yeah, you are going to struggle. Because if I said, this comrade, can you sort of unmute yourself for a second? I've got to pick on somebody, and as you've got such great perception of colour around your room, can you tell us what the 27 red things were? Do you just live in a red room?
No, there's a number of books. I've got 3 kids' toys up here.
Ah, okay.
And mother-in-law's got 2 tins that got buttons in it.
Right. So everything's just perfectly lined up to you to count.
Plus, I'm very visual and I'm dyslexic, so I see things.
Oh God! So you
don't do anything else.
So can you do the buttons thing that Darren Brown does? No. He puts a load of buttons in a tray and he can count them within about a second.
Yeah. Sort of.
Something to work on. So let's say, is there a task that you want to get done? That's been on your to-do list, but you haven't got done.
Well, there's various tasks, but
just one. Just as it doesn't matter what it is. Just want to use it as an example.
I've got. I'm trying to create a specification sheet for our staff to use, and I've disseminated that to other people to fill in bits that are missing items.
Doesn't matter what it is. So you've got a goal of actually of completing a specification list.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I said to you, when do you think you can get that done by, comrade? So be a little bit vague for me.
End of next month.
End of next month. Great. Okay. So if it's at the end of next month, the way that your brain perceives that is sometime in the future.
Yeah.
So when does it start to actually realise when the end of next month is? Do you think?
Probably middle of the next month.
Middle of next month, probably at the end of next month. It'll suddenly wake up and go, oh shit, it's the end of next month.
Yeah.
So if I said to you, right, comrade, I want that specification sheet by the 30th of November or 31st of October at 10:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
How are you now thinking of that differently to the end of next month? What thought process is going on in your head?
Well, because number orientated, that immediately registers that it's more urgent than it would have been, if you know what I mean. By a date and time on it.
So now you've just by setting the exact time and say by 10:30 is more precise than 10 o'clock. Okay, 10:37 is even more precise than 10:30.
Yeah.
So you're having now to think, right? Because you've got to visualize that 10:37 on the Friday the 31st, whatever that date is. Now your brain is going into solution mode of saying, right, I've set a deadline now. How do I'm working backwards of when I need to start that project. If
Yeah,
you say at the end of next month, I don't have to think about it now because you've not set that dateline in your head. And this is why sport is, when we look at sports people, why they seem to be able to be far more efficient than we are as business people. Okay, because in sport, there is a goal to achieve, and that goal has a deadline. Up until this summer, if you were in the 100 meters, Olympic 100 meters, you would know exactly what day, what time that race was going to be, and you have to be at your peak, the moment you walk on the track. There isn't a case of, well, if I miss the deadline by 5 minutes, I'll be all right. No, you'll be turning up as they all collect their medals. So we've got to understand that if we want to get that discipline, if we want to be better at time management, we have to come to that way of setting our own deadlines. Not, I'll get it done by the end of the week. Not, sometime in the month, or maybe I'll do it tomorrow. No, when tomorrow? What time are you going to start it? And as soon as we start thinking that way, then the techniques that I'm going to show you later are going to make a lot more sense. But it comes back to the way our brains work, and they are goal-seeking missiles. But if you don't set a smart goal, okay, if you don't set something that is, this is what I'm aiming for, this is what I'm going to achieve, then you're letting yourself off the hook. And this is just as important, not only for ourselves, but when we delegate to other people, do not allow somebody you delegate something to have all by the end of next week. That is not a smart goal. Okay, when by the end of next week? Thursday. Well, when Thursday? Thursday afternoon. Okay, when Thursday afternoon? And you'll see that their face change as their brain has to work out, shit, I've now got to get something done. It's now going through the mental process of actually clarifying, can I actually get this done? And if it's in there, then you're going to increase the chances of it happening, a great deal. So smart goals, but if they're not inspiring and emotional, then you're not going to generally you don't buy into them. So if you've got a goal that is a bit of something what we call a frog, I do come across the term eat that frog. There's a great little book on that if you haven't read that one. That we have all these frogs that we taste nasty, we don't really want to do, and the key to this is actually to get them done. If you've got a frog to eat, then set the inspiring emotional as a reward. So if I get this done by 10 o'clock tomorrow, then I'll reward myself with something that's quite nice. I'll buy donuts. I'll take the afternoon off. I'll treat myself to that thing that I was going to do. Okay, so just a little way to give yourself a little reward. If it's a bit of a nasty thing you've got to get done, then give yourself a reward for actually doing it. So for me, often when it comes to sort of month end and I've got the admin-y stuff to do, I will link something I'm probably going to do anyway, to that task. So I'll say, for me, I love my golf. So I say, if I get that done by 2 o'clock on Friday, then I can go and play golf in the afternoon. Okay, and if I link those two, then in my mind, I'm more likely to get it done at 2 o'clock because I'd much rather go and play golf. I won't wait and let it drag on. So we've got to start thinking about what our time goals are. Okay, so this is really sort of a way to actually think about, when we're looking at running our business, one of the key terms that I use a lot is this working on the business and working in the business. Working on is, think about it as if you're the managing director of your business, that's when you wear the MD's hat. Working in is when you're actually wearing an employee's hat, you're doing the activity, the job itself. So you've got to make time, and set goals for how much time you want to spend working on the business. There might be 5 hours a week, might be 10 hours, it might be 1 hour a week. But set the goal of the amount of time, not necessarily what you're going to do with the time yet, but set the amount of time that you think is right to be working on. My default minimum is about 5 hours. Okay, if you're an employee and you're working in your job, you should still be thinking about the bigger picture stuff. So set time to work on improving the job you're doing. So improving the systems, the processes, perhaps meeting other people to actually do the job better. And then the rest of the time actually doing the activity itself. Time with the family. They talk about work-life balance. When you're in business, there is no work-life balance. Nothing's in balance. Certainly, with Damien and Claire, when you live together, you work together. It's in the bottom of the garden. You ain't getting any balance. All you can ask for is harmony. Okay, the two have got to work in harmony side by side, and it's a bit of give and take. So, okay, I might be working a few evenings, on the business, but likewise, I should therefore be able to take some days off to go and do what I want to do. And if that harmony isn't there, then you've got to question it, and you've got to start setting the goal of what does successful look like? What does a good harmony look like? Okay, for me, it's quite easy. Again, I love my golf, so harmony for me is I get to play golf at least once during the week. If that doesn't happen, then I'm out of balance. I'm not in harmony. So I've got to do something to address that and get it back into line. So for me, it's about, it's a big part of that. When I started the business in the early days, I sacrificed all that because that's what I had to do. But that was never going to be the long-term goal. It was always going to be something where I can actually set, this is my goal because this is what's important to me. Business is there to actually help me achieve that goal. Time for self, this is what Zan was talking about, time to think, time to do the activities that I want to do. But again, it's got to be specific. How many hours? I know it seems a bit anal sometimes that, I've got to plan to be spontaneous. It just seems a bit odd, plan to be spontaneous. But when you've got so much to do, you have to create time in your diary to do this. Okay, and time to learn. I mean, you guys have all invested your time today, a couple of hours. I set a time in the diary. Most of you are on time. Some people haven't turned up. So that's what I would say. Don't be late, or you can't not turn up to a time management course, because how are you going to improve? So be clear what your time goals are going to be. When you're doing different roles, you might be doing marketing, sales, operation, finance, HR. You might be wearing all these hats. Set time. How many hours per week do you want to spend in each role? Even if you don't achieve it, then at least you've got a default to come back to each week. And you'll know when success is. When success is, I've achieved that, great. And the more you achieve it, the more likely you're going to repeat it. So that's really about the goal setting. So if we're not setting goals, then I don't think there's any way you can have control over your time. It's just, I've never seen it. The people that are in chaos are generally, I ask them, well, what do you want to achieve? They go, oh, I don't know. I'm too busy. I haven't got enough time. Well, no, you've got enough time. It's just you're not clear what your goals are, and you're not planning to actually make it happen. So a lot of people have positive beliefs and negative beliefs around time. Okay, so some of the things, there isn't enough time to do what I want to do. Well, there is. There's 24 hours. Every day you get another 24 hours. Just imagine if time were money. Yeah, you had £10,000 given to you at the beginning of the day, yeah, which you could spend or not spend. At the end of the day, you lose it all, but you're given another £10,000. You'd be pretty happy with that, wouldn't you? Okay, so there's no point in getting to the end of the day and of only spending a quid of your £10,000, because tomorrow you've got £10,000 and that's it. You can't accumulate it. You can't store it up for later. Yeah, you've got to start using our time wisely. So one of the my little sort of sayings is, business is not busyness. Yeah, we should not be, business isn't, or busyness in our business is not the default. That's not, when we sign up and we decide to run our businesses, a lot of people, I run a small business and therefore I have to be busy. No, you don't. There is a phase you go through where, yes, if you want to be successful at it, you've got to put that in. But eventually, you should have other people doing the work for you, yeah, and they're the ones that should be busy, and you're the one that should be calm and overseeing everything. I can always sort of, when I go into a business for the first time and I look around, and the business owner is the busiest person in the organisation. So they're the one that's working the longest hours. They're first ones there, last ones to leave. They're the most stressed. Not the whole team are all nice and calm, and they clock in and clock off at the right time. I then know that we've got a business that isn't being run properly. In my best case businesses, the business owner can turn up at 10 o'clock, can stay for a couple of hours, and then can bugger off afterwards, because the team are actually running the business for them. So that's what we've got to have in our mind, that a business is a commercial profit enterprise that will work without you. Yeah. And we've got to be working towards that. We may not be there yet, but that's what we're working towards. Yeah. It's not about being busy, 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 busy. My father ran a business for 15 years without that mindset. He thought that running a business, you had to work 80 hours a week. Okay, I was a teenager at the time. I wouldn't say we fell out, but sort of my relationship with my dad, just didn't grow through my teenage years. And, he was 55 years old. And I think the stress of all of that after 15 years of doing it was one of the key reasons he got blood cancer. His business went pop at the age of 55 and he never worked again. That is not what running a business is about. Okay, running a business is about building a commercial profit enterprise that will work without you. Same if you guys that have got jobs working for other people, it's not about working loads and loads of hours. It's being efficient. It's about getting the job done in the most efficient way. But when something needs to be done, yes, you do have to work longer hours, but that shouldn't be the default. Okay, it should always be manageable. If it's not manageable, if you've got more work to get done than you've got time to do, then you've got to speak up. You've got to look at it and say, well, why am I working 12 hours a day? What's causing that? What am I doing to actually stop that? What processes and people am I putting in place to actually reduce that? May take you 3 months, may take you 6 months, may take 12 months. But unless you're doing something to reduce that, you're just going to go onto that hamster wheel and run round and round faster and faster. Sorry, mate. Oh. So, what I said about the £10,000 each day, actually time is far more important, because once it's gone, it's gone. You can't. No amount of money can actually get your time back. Once you've spent money, then you can actually reinvest money to actually earn more money back. So we've got to be very careful where we actually spend our time and actually spend it in the right places, and be aware, completely aware of where it's actually going. And the other thing is, if you don't respect your time, no one else is going to respect it for you. So this is vitally important for those that are running teams. Yeah. If you don't respect it, if you don't protect it, then people want to take it. It's a bit like turning up to work with, say, £10,000 in notes, and you leave it on your desk. And coming back at the end of the day, if you're surprised that somebody hasn't pinched a few notes, then that's a bit crazy, isn't it? Of course, you leave 10,000 notes out on the desk, it's going to tempt people to pinch it. If you leave your time out there for people, then they will take a piece of it. And that's why I said at the start, it's our ability sometimes to be able to say no. Yeah, my time is my most important asset, and therefore I need to protect it and not get it sucked away by other people. So bringing those sort of together, we have our little formula for life success. B times do equals have. Have is our goals, which I talked about at the start, are the most important. B is our attitude, knowledge, and skills. And do is our activity. So this is what we actually do. So if we want to be successful at anything, these three things must stack up. Okay, but the most important always is the goal. What do we actually want? What do we want our time to look like? So we've got to get better at visualizing what a perfect day is, what a perfect week is. If we can start to do that, then we've got a chance of actually moving towards it. So what I find is I use this little slide a lot for on when I'm dealing with teams, that there's two types of people. There's people that live above the line, and take ownership, accountability, responsibility, and there's people that live below the line. When it comes to time management, and you'll see this all the time, it's very easy to go down into blame, excuses, and denial. I didn't have enough time to get something done because of COVID-19, because of the team, because of a customer. I make excuses, or probably the worst one is denial, which is, not even being aware that, things aren't getting done. Taking responsibility, holding yourself accountable, and taking full ownership is tough. Okay, it's the hardest thing to do. This is it. This is down here, down below the line here. This is easy. You have to think about this, and we all do it. We all make excuses. If I when I contact the people that haven't made it today, they'll give me an excuse of why they didn't turn up. If they'd taken full responsibility and said, right, this course, is going to be a life changer for me. This is going to be the one thing that is going to change my life completely, then they would have been here. And this is what we've got to understand, that when we're looking at time management, we have to be up at this level. The things that we want to do have got to mean something to us. If they don't mean something to us, then they're the ones that we are going to just slip. And that's why we've got to put them in alignment to our, to where our goals are and what we're actually trying to do. And when we're dealing with our team members, we've got to accept that, they will go down here. They will do this stuff. Okay, because it's easy for them. But our job as a good manager is to make sure that, fine, okay, get rid of that blame, excuse, and denial. What I want you to take some responsibility for this. And think about, if you've got children, I know some of you got grandkids, this is childish behavior. Kids do this. Adults do this. So if you accept this from your kids, they never grow up. Yeah? If you accept this from your team members, again, they never grow up. So our job when we build a business is to build a business full of people who are above the line. They take ownership, accountability, responsibility. Okay, so again, if we're working for other people, we've got to make sure we do this, but also make sure your bosses do this. Because bosses can be terrible at making blame, excuse, and denial. So we've got to be prepared to call each other. If we are below the line, we've got to be able to call it and actually do something to move above the line and take that responsibility. So we're starting to think about here our sort of beliefs and how we change this behavior. Okay, so our beliefs, our behavior. So if we looked at us as individuals, so let's say, well, let's keep it to ourselves at the moment, but it relies to our team as well. Our behavior drives our actions, our decisions, and the results. So if you look at yourself and say, well, am I getting the results that I could be getting? Yeah, and if the answer to that is no, then generally speaking, our behavior is not quite in line to what we want to achieve. So if I was a top level sportsman or woman, and I'm going out onto the field and I'm losing. Every time I go out, I lose. So my behavior on the field is not giving me the results. Okay, I could go below the line and I could blame this and make excuses, but you can't do that in sport. It's down to you. You've got to be the difference. So if I want to change this behavior, I've got to look at myself as this iceberg. And what I see on the surface is only about 10%. The real meat is underneath the surface. So to change this behavior, I've got to start changing what's below. And the first level is, do I have the skills necessary to do what I need to do? Now, for some of us, we don't. Okay, if we're doing multiple roles, different activities we've taken on, we may not be the best person at doing what we should be doing. So if you're doing the finances and you're not a trained accountant, if you're doing sales and marketing and you're not trained in those areas, or HR, you're not trained, you don't have the skills to do the job the most efficiently you could, and therefore you're going to waste time. So at that point, if we don't have these skills, then we need to train for the skills. We need to come onto a time management course, learn some different skills, and try different ways to actually achieve it. Because if we're not learning, if we're not actually, so this is really about, training, and learning new skills. So that generally is quite easy, isn't it? Yeah, just to, if I don't have the skills, then I need to go and attain those skills somewhere. If I've got those skills and I still don't change, then I've got to look at my beliefs. And so what do I believe that is holding me back? Now, this, compared to training new skills, would you say this is easier or harder? Sam? You need to come off mute. You come off mute, Sam?
There we go. Sorry about that. Yes. So the difference between changing your skills and your beliefs.
Yeah. Which one's easier to change? Changing somebody's skills or beliefs?
I would go for skills because beliefs are more ingrained.
Yeah. We're getting down deeper into this iceberg. Okay, so training skills, I can just train, I can learn some stuff. Beliefs need to be challenged. Okay, so if I want to change your beliefs, Zan, about something, I need to challenge them. I need to question them. I need to go, why do you think that? Why do you think that being busy in a business is the right thing to do? Why are you working 10 hours a day? Why are you running around? Why are you the busiest person in the organization? Now, as an individual, are we good at challenging our own beliefs? No, we're rubbish at it. In fact, we can't do it because we can't see it sometimes. We're so ingrained in doing what we do, we don't actually see that there's another way of doing it. So this is why we need somebody outside of us to challenge this. It's very difficult to challenge your own beliefs because you believe, excuse my French, but you believe your own bullshit. Yeah, until somebody's there to actually challenge you, then nothing changes. If our beliefs, we can change our beliefs, but we're still not changing the behavior, then you go down to a values level. So these are our core beliefs. These are our real values, what we believe is right. Now, how easy do you think these are to change? Really tough. And to be honest, if your values are working for you, then fine, stick with them, don't change them. But if you don't change at this level, then again, if the behavior is not right, then you're not going to actually change anything. And if we go down to the bottom, down to our identity, so identity is what we say to ourselves about ourselves when we're by ourselves, then that's really tough to change. Who I really am. And I find this a lot with business owners, or to be honest, with senior execs or anyone in a senior position, is their identity sometimes isn't at the same level as their position in the organization. So if you're the managing director of your business, do you see yourself as a managing director? Do you have the identity of being a managing director? And a lot of CEOs, that in large organizations, actually when they're working with their coaches, turn around and say, I don't. There's a fear of getting found out, fear of actually somebody someday is going to question why the hell I'm running this organization. Now they're good at covering it up because you can't go into an organization and say, well, I've got no bloody idea what I'm doing. But deep down, their identity, their voices are constantly challenging them. And we've all got these voices, no matter what we do. Top athletes struggle with this. Okay, their little voices say, well, you're not worthy, you're not good enough. You haven't practiced enough. Who are you to win this championship? There's better people than you. Okay, so down at this level, the only way really to change this is therapy. Okay, if you want to change it quickly, then you need either mind-altering drugs or therapy. But we can work on our identity. It takes time. So if we continue this journey here, learn new skills, challenge our beliefs, improve our values, and therefore build our identity, over time, we can get that confidence and knowledge to be the person we want to be. But if we're not clear what that person is, then none of this gets moved forwards. It just stays there. And that's what happened to my dad. My dad was a successful person before he bought a business, started a business. But did he work on his identity, and his beliefs over those 15 years? No, he didn't. He just stayed at the same level, didn't learn any new skills. And therefore, when push came to shove, the business stopped growing and he went out of business. And when you think about 98% of businesses in the UK are under 1 million turnover and employ less than 10 people, you can see that the majority of people get to a certain level of their behavior and that's where they stop. And one of those key things is, again, time management. Is they're not spending their time doing the right things. They're just doing the busy things. So we need to be focused and challenging our beliefs at all time. Am I actually doing, what's right for me, moving me towards my goals and growing this business? And the final one, and to be honest, I should put this one first because the environment in which we work and we live, yeah, is probably one of the biggest influences on our behavior. Okay, so if we're in an environment that isn't conducive to the behavior that we want, yeah, then we've got to change that environment. And I've been through this a number of times, you know, running my own business. I started my business in my front room, you know, and, you know, it was a smallish house. And, you know, in order for me to change my behavior, I had to move out of that environment. Because you know, my identity wasn't growing when I just worked at home. So I needed to move out, and I got a serviced office, and that helped with my identity and therefore my behaviour. Once I did that, I then grew out of that and took on an office, and that again improved my identity, my beliefs, and my behaviour. The bizarre thing is I've come full circle, yeah, and I now work at home again. But part of that is because my goals and my priorities have changed. So it's not, I don't see it as a step backwards. I just see it as a different way to go forwards. So we can be prepared to change that, yeah. But as long as we're understanding that if I change the environment, therefore I change the behaviour. And for some of you, you know, certainly we've got big teams, you know, I call it the open plan office syndrome. Oh, we should have an open plan office, and you know, I need to be accessible to my team. Well, yeah. So if you're more accessible to your team, what do your team do? Access you. Yeah. So they're constantly, you know, asking questions, you know, what's this, what's that? And therefore you don't have any time. And if you look at big organizations, you know, where you've got, you know, the managing director, let's say you've got a big office block, yeah, where's the MD's office? Top floor, yeah, in the furthest corner away. Now, okay, it's got the nicest view and it's probably the biggest room in the whole building, but it's also the furthest away from everybody else. So if you want to go and see the MD, yeah, you've got to make an effort. So it's got to be important. So sometimes making ourselves inaccessible to our team is critical. Changing that environment so we're not in the business, we're not pulled and sucked into the day-to-day is vital. Now that might be, you know, having your own space in your office. You know, it might be working from home once or twice a week. Okay, but if you want to change that behavior, always think about, do I need to change that environment? Because that will be one of the biggest positive impactors on your actual behavior. The next thing we've got to think about in our relation to time is the type of behavioral profile that we are. Now, I know some of you guys are clients, and we've done DISC profiles with you. For just raise your up, people I can't see. You know, is anybody not done a behavioural profile? Just type in the chat box if you haven't done one. Okay. It'd be good. So Zan hasn't. Okay, Zan. Yes, interesting. We'll, you know. So if you have, brilliant. You know, we use one of the systems we use is a system called DISC, and it's a very simple one. It's one of the oldest profiling systems that there is. It was first developed in the 1930s and has been improved upon ever since. And some people call it ColourWorks, where there's colours of red, green, yellow, and blue. Yeah. So. But we tend to use the original, which is the sort of the DISC profile, and it categorizes people into 4 types: outgoing, yeah, reserved. So extroverted, introverted. Task-focused people, so logical, analytical, and people more emotional, sort of people-focused, people-related. And we've got elements of all of these in us, but we tend to have 1 or 2 profiles that are higher than the others. And those people, if we go to the extremes, so if I'm task focused, so if I'm task focused and outgoing, then I'm called a D. If I'm outgoing and people focused, I'm an I. Reserved and people, I'm an S. And reserved and task, I'm a C. So, and we can also say so D's are powerful people, I's are popular people, S's are peaceful, and C's are perfect people. So if we look at that and look at the D, so the D is a task-focused extrovert, so a dominant, driving, determined, dramatic doer. Okay, so these people get things done. They're not always the best at communicating to other people. They don't really get, we call it emotional intelligence. Yeah, they don't really get how other people feel. They can walk over people, make people feel quite bad. There's a bit of laughing going there with Damon and Claire. I assume the D's you, Claire, on that one. So their challenge with time is, no one else does it well enough. They're all useless, and the only person that can do this is me. So I'll do it. Yeah. Because of that, they know everything. They know their business inside out. So they'll have their fingers in every single pie in the business. Yeah, and the business cannot, eventually, it doesn't work without them. They're such an integral cog in the whole running of the business that the business just won't work without them. So you can imagine this person. So we look at this as sort of saying, if I'm the business owner here, and I've got my team here, I've got my customers here, I've got my suppliers here. The owner works on the team, the owner works on the customers, the owner works on the suppliers. So we get this big arrow just points, take you out of the equation, the whole business disappears. So D's are great at starting things, getting things going, but they're actually pretty rubbish then at handing things over. Okay, because they don't get buy-in to the tasks. Their version of delegating is, there you go, get it done. I want it done as quickly as possible, as good as I would. And that person's had no training, there's no process to follow. They get halfway through and the D goes, oh, you're rubbish, I'll take it back and I'll do it myself. There's a lot of laughing there with Claire and Damien. And you'll see it, and certainly for other people, if you've got bosses like this, they can be great, but they can be a right royal pain in the arse. Okay, so a D's got to understand that the strength with a D is they are good at seeing the goals, of knowing what needs to be done. They don't like detail, so they are actually quite good at delegating. They're quite happy to delegate something, but what they're not good is actually giving the process of exactly what, the full instructions of what they should be doing. So they've got to delegate a little bit slower and allow people to get to that level of competence where they can hand it over, in a proper way. We move on to the I's. So I's are now extroverted still. So another word for extroverted is I speak before I think. Okay, so they'll just, whatever's on their mind, they'll just come out with it. Yeah. The I, though, is more looking to inspire people. Yeah. Sort of influence them in a way. So a D will get things done by telling people what to do, and I will inspire them to get it done. Okay. They love talking to people. So you can always tell a D's desk, because there'll be minimal amount of paper on it and it'll all be in the right place. Can we see that desk? Is it a bit like that, Claire? Or maybe there's a bit of another profile in there as well.
It's a mess.
It's a mess, is it? Okay. So there might be a little bit. I'll show you a little bit in a minute. But the I generally doesn't have a desk, because the I just likes talking to people. They're never at their desk. They're always wandering around, talking to people. So very good at inspiring people, but the challenge with the I is to get caught up with what I call magpie syndrome. Start lots of things, never complete it. Yeah, flitter around. Oh, the next shiny bright thing. Oh, there's something over there that I'm going to do. Oh, there's something. So easily distracted is the high I. Yeah, talks about it, but actually when it comes to delegating, doesn't really give any instructions. Just an expectation that something's going to get done. And as I say, starts things, but just doesn't complete them. And certainly with a team, when you've got a high I, people have a lot of respect for that person, would really appreciate what they do. But when it comes to it, they go, well, yeah, but I don't really know what I'm meant to be doing. So nothing really gets done. Okay, so I's will lose time because they're actually, they're too busy talking to people, too busy doing things that they really shouldn't be doing. It's all about the people, not about getting the job. Yes is now the steady person. So this is the supporter. They're stable, a little bit shy, a bit more introverted. An introverted person thinks before they speak. So sometimes, when D's and I's are talking to S's, they get a bit fed up, a bit frustrated because, well, come on, say something. Yeah, but the S needs to mull things over, think about it, take a bit of more time before they process that information. They also like the status quo. They don't like change. They like a nice, easy pace to things. And the biggest problem with an S is they really don't like saying no. So if you want something done, give it to an S to do, because they will get it done. It won't be in a very good time frame, yeah, but they will happily accept it because they want to keep people happy, yeah, by actually doing, taking that work away from them. And as I say, they're not great at time scales. So the SMART goals I talked about is critical for an S. If you don't give an S the time frame you want it done by, you'll come back in a month's time and it will be on the list. They'll know where it is in their pile. Oh yeah, I was going to get round to that. But somebody else has come up with some urgent stuff that has taken precedent. Then the C is the conscientious, cautious, calculating, compliant, correct person. So this is the person that really has that attention to detail. And their challenges are, it needs to be perfect before they move on. So they get stuck in the detail. They get stuck in actually, dotting the I, crossing the T, and things that they should have just moved on to something else, they're still working on. Yeah, they hate delegating. C's hate delegating because they really, if D's, thought they could do it better, a C thinks they're the perfectionist at this. And they don't like accountability. Again, they like enough time to get it done properly. So if you ask a C for a deadline, oh, I don't know, I'll try my best, but I want it to be right. So they can, their time goes in, that final 10% in any job. Whereas a D would get it up to 80% and go, right, that's good enough, move on to the next one. Okay, so if we understand what our profile is, whether we've got D in us, I, S, C, I say we've got a mixture of them all, but there'll be one or two that are more prominent, then we'll start to understand our relationship with time. And we'll know where our weaknesses are. So if I'm an I, so when I'm coaching I clients, for me, it's really about getting that accountability, getting that focus. Yeah, stop the magpie syndrome. D's is probably to reduce the pace a little bit and get them to actually not react and delegate more. Delegate properly, not just chuck stuff at people and expect it to be done. S's, got to teach them to learn to say no. Don't keep taking other people's stuff on. Focus on what you need to do. And C's, is to avoid that going too slow because you just want everything perfect. Well, life isn't perfect. You've got 101 things more to do. You've got to stop that and move on to the next thing. Okay, so understanding what your profile is really key. And if you haven't done a profile, we use a system. It's all online. It takes 10 minutes to do. Produces a 37-page report, and for that basic report, it's 25 quid. So it's a really cheap way to actually get that information. And I think Luke, you did yours, didn't you? A month or so ago. Can you unmute yourself? Luke Barnes, are you? No, he's nodded off. Okay. Luke Simpson says well worth doing. Yeah, they're great tools, and also if we're trying to delegate to other people, we've got other team members, then understanding their profile, how to delegate, how to motivate them is key as well. So it's for us, but also helps them with their time management. So once we understand ourselves, what causes our problems with time management, and we're working our sort of our own identity iceberg, then we can start looking at the tools that we can use to actually help us. There's no point in doing the tools without understanding who we are first. And there's no point in doing either of those until we know what we actually want to achieve. So goals, number one. Number two, work on our own belief system and our own behavior, and then use the tools. This is why time management courses don't work, because they just give you the tool. But if you don't understand who you are and what you are, the tool may or may not work for you. Okay, or you may not know how to use the tool because you're not quite sure what your profile is and how how it's best used with your style. So our time mastery sort of 4 quadrants. So this came, I did mention it earlier, was Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and habit number 4 was all the effective people that he actually interviewed and looked into had this amazing ability to be disciplined. It's what they did with their time that was critical. And they looked at it and said, there's 4 areas. The first one is not urgent and not important, which he called the distraction. So successful people do not get distracted. They don't do non-urgent, non-important stuff. So an urgent thing is something that needs to be done now. There's consequences of not doing it. An important thing is something that's helping us achieve our goals. So that's why I said, if we don't know what our goals are, we cannot identify what's important, and therefore we cannot use this system. So not urgent, there's no consequence, not important, it's not helping us achieve our goals. So this is stuff. This is where we get sidetracked. I look at something on Google, 5 minutes later I'm off on some strange website, playing some staff game, or I'm just doing something that's I don't need to be doing. Now, I generally find business owners don't have much of this because there's always too many things to do. But if you do find yourself being distracted easily, you've got to stop that. If you're going to do the sort of, I would call the quiet time, relaxation time, make time to do it. Keep it limited and but be very cautious of it, because it's quite easy. It just grows. So I had a client with me. He's into video games, So I said, okay, so when do you play video games? I bet you start playing during the day. And he said, yeah. I said, well, that's because you don't have a goal. The business hasn't got a goal. Therefore, you think that playing a video game is an important thing to do. So we're going to cut that out completely. Okay. So we've got to kick out these distractions. The next level then is urgent. So there's a consequence of not doing it, but it's not important. So this is a bit more thought. He called this delusion. And delusion comes from where we delude ourselves we're busy because we're doing things that are important. If they're not important to us, they must be important to somebody else. So we end up helping other people achieve their goals rather than achieve our own goal. And this is a big weakness of C's and S's. Okay, so back to the C and S profiles is they're helping everyone else achieve their goals, but they forget about their own. And because of that, they delude themselves that they're busy, but they're actually not busy moving themselves forwards, then they're moving other people forwards. Now, if you're supporting in a team and you're doing that, that's fine. That's what you're paid to do. But when you're running a department or running your own business, then you've got to be clear what's urgent, what's important. So this one to me is all about you've lost sight of what your goal is. What are you trying to achieve? Where do you need to be in a month's time, a quarter's time, a year's time? Then the one, and this is the curse of the business owner, is demand, the firefighting zone. So it's urgent, it has to be done now, and it is helping us achieve our goal. Okay, so we're constantly in demand. We're being pulled from pillar to post. We're putting one fire out, then going to another fire, putting that fire out. The key to this one is understanding why that particular task has become urgent. And generally it's become urgent is because we didn't do it when it wasn't urgent. So go back to our discussion, Conrad, about that job that you had to get done by the end of next month. Yeah, if you wait until 2 days before that job is due to be done, suddenly it becomes urgent, doesn't it? Whereas today, it's not urgent, it's still important. And if we'd done it today, we wouldn't then find ourselves in an urgency in a month's time. And this is what happens is because we're not good at actually doing the non-urgent but important stuff, everything becomes urgent and important, and we just end up firefighting. So we've got to understand what is it what are we doing on a day-to-day basis that falls into this. One of the best ways to do that is just make a list of it. Write down. So you write these 4 sectors out, and you start writing the activities you're doing. Which one of these 4 areas is my time going into? Because if you can create the awareness, then you can do something about it. Where he said we want to be is in the zone, which is the urgent, not urgent, but important. And this, for me, is the working on the business, not working in the business. This is your 90-day plan. This is your strategy. This is the time to think. And what we need to do is to make sure that we're spending enough time in here so that we don't do the urgency important. We say no to avoid the delusion, and we're clear enough on our goals that we never get distracted. If we can do that, then we start to get control of our time. Okay, so we've got to start thinking, in the work that you're doing on a day-to-day basis, awareness. Look back every day, even halfway through the day. Where have I been today? Have I been in this zone here? Yeah, I got a bit sidetracked. Oh God, I've been pulled by my customers, my team. I just had all these fires I had to fight because I didn't do it 3 months ago. And where we can do this, not urgent but important stuff, then we should celebrate. If we can set a target for doing 5 hours, 10 hours, 20 hours a week here, then we know that we're going to start getting the results that we're after. So what we need to do is take those 4 concepts and write this sort of time management matrix down and start writing in them, what we need to stop doing. So the not urgent, not important, resist it and stop it. Phone calls, escape activities, chat, gossip. Certainly if you're in a bigger organization where it's open plan, this it can easily get into this sort of chit chat. Okay, so what is it that you're doing on a day-to-day basis that is in here? Right, write it in there when it happens, and then work on ways to actually stop it. Reject and explain to others, so this is other people's demand on your time. Maybe it's some meetings. You know, I'm a great believer that an organisation must have meetings. You know, they're the lifeblood of the business. They're the heartbeat of the business. But are they relevant? Do you need to be at that meeting? Yeah, can you change? Okay. Other people's interruptions. You know, make sure. I had one client. We went through this, and it's a small office, but it's open plan. And you know, at the month end, she had to get the accounts done, and yeah, other people kept on asking her. So what she did? Do you remember the old-fashioned foldable screens that you can get? She bought one of those, you know, and she basically, when she's trying to do work on the business, do her bit, she puts the screen around her desk, puts a barrier up, changes the environment to stop those interruptions. Okay, I've got other clients that will work from home on particular days, so they're not accessible. Okay, so we've got to reject and explain to people why. It's not being saying no and not giving an explanation. Explain why you can't be accessible during that time. The do it now stuff, you know. So what is it? You'll find out why you're being distracted. Sorry, why you're firefighting. Okay, deadlines overdue. You know, there's always a reason why something has suddenly become urgent. And there will always be 10%, maybe 20% of your week in here, but it should be limited. It shouldn't be the norm. And yeah, then it's all about planning stuff that you want to do. This is the key part. So we want to get rid of this. So if we, you know, so we want to get rid of this time here. Yeah, minimize this. Yeah, minimize this, and all of that goes into here. And the further up the organisation you go, the higher this figure needs to be. So if you're right at the top of the organisation, you really should be 80% of your time up here. If you're in the early stages of a business, it's going to be probably 10% will be a good starting goal. Okay, but we've got to get clarity of what it should be and then work towards that. So in order to control our resource, the first thing we've got to do is review what we're doing. Okay, we've got to review, we've got to get better at understanding what am I actually doing on a day-to-day basis? Where is my time going? Now, for me, this was generally quite easy because in my previous life, I was a chartered accountant, worked in practice, yeah, and I had to do a timesheet every day and account for every 15 minutes of my time. Okay, every day, I had a timesheet. I had to book it to jobs. If I wasn't doing a job, I'd put it to training. But every minute of the day, I had to record where it went. So I was trained at the age of, well, pretty much 16 when I got my first job, yeah, how to do this. I didn't know then it was a really good life skill, okay, but it's really stood me in good stead because I'm very good now at assessing on a day-to-day basis where my time goes. So we've got to get better at really taking a step back and looking where our time goes. And we've got to look at prioritizing that. Okay, so start saying, what do I actually want to achieve? Yeah, and then we can go on to actually, you know, organizing it into what we want, into where we want to go. So you've got to look at this and say, right, what hat are you wearing? What roles in your organization do you actually do? And, you know, an easy way to look at this is to do a, I'll do it on here because I can write on here. So if you look at your organization tree, so at the top of the organization tree, you're a shareholder. Yeah. You're also the managing director. Maybe you're the marketing director as well. Maybe you're the sales director as well. Maybe you're the operations director. Maybe you're the finance director and the HR director. And maybe, you know, you do payroll. Maybe you do the accounts. Yeah. Here you've got all your operational activities. Here you've got all your sales activities. Here you've got your lead generation activities. So when you run a small business, yeah, it's a bit like the one-man band, you know, with the drum bass on your back, the cymbals, the harmonica in your mouth, and you're making a bit of a tune. That's what running a startup business is like. As we grow, what we want to start seeing is we're moving up here, yeah, and passing in team in to actually do this work. So we move up to a higher level. At this level here, we become the conductor. Okay, so we're no longer playing the instruments, you know, we're just conducting the symphony. But there's a transition that we have to go through. And during that transition, we need to understand, you know, what hats we're wearing and make time for each hat. Because if I'm just doing operations, doing no sales and marketing, my business isn't going to grow. If I do this at the expense of, you know, the finances, I might run out of cash. If I don't spend any time doing HR, my people are going to be fed up and probably leave, and I'll never be able to grow. Now, sometimes we can outsource some of this stuff. So we can outsource the finance and the HR to other companies. That we can get marketing companies to do our marketing. One thing I'd say you don't really outsource certainly your sales and your operations. Okay, so we're starting to, you know, we wear all the hats to start with. Now we're trying to build a team where we can actually pass these hats over to. But when it comes to our time management, what we want to be able to do is really keep this sort of time log. Yeah, the time of where my tasks are doing. So you put down here sort of marketing. Okay, so Monday I spent 2 hours, Tuesday I spent 2 hours, didn't do anything there. Did 4 hours on marketing. Finance, yeah, I did 3 hours there, nothing there, nothing there, nothing there, that's 3 hours. Operations, yeah, 5 hours a day. Yeah, so 25 hours. So you start keeping a log of this time, and then you start saying, right, well, is that right? Should I be doing that? And if we set at the beginning of the month or the week a target, yeah, and say, right, well, I've got 40 hours I want to work. I should be doing 5 there, 5 there, 20 there, and sales here, it should be 10. So that's my target. Now I'm setting a goal and I'm working towards it. Now, okay, not every week I'll achieve that, but if I can, then it's really going to help me. Okay, so the first thing we've got to do is review what we do and record it. It's got to be down in writing so you can actually see it, because you'll have 1 week which you'll think is a great week, another week you'll think is rubbish week, and at the end of the month you'll look back and you won't really know what the month was. Okay, but if you've logged every single hour that you've worked and where you've worked it, you can actually then take a logical, judgmental view of how the week has actually gone. Once we've done that, and we do that for a few weeks, then we can move into what we call a skill fund matrix. So now we're starting to analyze these activities that we're doing, into whether it's high skill and whether we enjoy doing it. Anything that's up here, high skill, high fun, we want to carry on doing. Okay, so this is this should be the working on the business. This should be about growing the business. Okay, because if you don't find growing the business fun, then don't be in business. If you're working for somebody else, this should be what you're doing, what you're paid to do, the actual role that you love doing. Down here, low skill, low fun, we don't want to do any of that. So we've got to delegate that out to somebody else. Stop it and delegate it. Okay? There's no reason we should do this. if it's high fun, low skill, this is a bit of a question mark. Yeah, I really enjoy doing it, but does it need me to do this? Okay, so for me, this used to be accounts work. Because I'm an accountant, I actually enjoy doing accounts work. You know, it's bizarre. I know most of you look at me as a bit of a freak, but I did enjoy it. But yeah, it didn't really need my skill. You know, my skill was moving into coaching. That's what I really want to do more of. So all I would say is limit this to 10%. Okay, so no more than 10% of your week should be high fun, low skill. Okay, but sometimes there are jobs that you want to do that, you know, you just enjoy doing. It might be meeting customers, you know, it might be an operational activity that you do. I know I've got one client that, you know, he's an electrician, you know, he likes doing sparky stuff. Okay, so fine, you know, for 10%, you know, half a day a week, do some sparky stuff. But for the rest of the time, work on the business. The problem comes with this stuff, high skill, low fun. So it needs your level of skill to do it, yeah, but you don't really enjoy it. What you've got to do with this stuff is you've got to de-skill it. Okay, so you've got to break it down into its component parts. Something is generally skillful because it's a multiple of parts that go into it. So if we can break it down and we can create a process, yeah, and we can train, then what we can do is we can keep 20% of it, but delegate 80% to other people. And this is the thing that the high Ds do really badly. Yeah, they're very skillful at it. You know, they can get it done quickly. If they actually spent a bit of time and created a process and trained people to run the process, they would get that stuff off their hands. High Cs are pretty bad at this as well. Again, that perfectionist kicks in. So we want to get rid of 80% of this into here, all of this into here, and 90% of this into here. And then this box here grows where you're doing, you know, the high skill, high fun stuff. And that's when you'll get the growth in the business. Okay, so number one, monitor your time. Do it over a number of weeks, see where it is. Number two, do a skill fun matrix, allocate, you know, what you should be doing and what you need to delegate. Once you've got that, then you need to fill your day. Okay, and we take a little concept here of filling a vase with rocks, gravel and sand. So the rocks, yeah, are the important but not urgent stuff. The gravel is probably the demand stuff, the important and urgent, and the small is the sort of delusional, sort of not important, not urgent. If we want to get those rocks, gravel and sand into the vase, yeah, which one needs to go in first? The rocks, the gravel or the sand? Hands up for the gravel. Sand? Rocks. Rocks, yeah. So we've got to put the rocks in first. If we don't put the rocks in, then there's no room for the gravel and sand. And the way we do that in a time management thing is to come up with what we call a default diary. Okay, the default diary is all about getting those rocks in place and making time to do the things that should be done. So it's a little bit like a school timetable. Okay, so if you remember back at school, you know, you get your timetable. What was always on Monday mornings? So after registration, what did you always have first thing Monday morning? Anybody take their mic off and can you remember that far back?
Assembly.
After assembly. So what was the first lesson?
I'm going to say maths, but I can't remember.
It would have been double maths or double English. Okay, because what they're trying to do is get, the most important thing done when you are freshest, when you're the most likely to get it done. Okay, so put into the diary, if it's Monday morning when you're freshest and you want to get things done, put a rock in there to actually do that work. So you'd basically get your diary here and say, right, Monday morning, oops. Mad. So Monday morning in here, that is to do my sort of working on the business. Go back to your school timetable. Wednesday afternoon. What did we always do Wednesday afternoon? Zan?
Sport.
Sport.
Yeah, sport.
Yeah, it's always
Okay.
sport.
So you needed a bit of a halfway through the week pick me up to get your energy levels back up. Okay, so do something that's fun and enjoyable halfway through the week. Break the week up. Maybe go and meet clients. Do your team meetings. Do something that is less taxing but more fun. And then what about Friday afternoons? What did we always do Friday afternoons? Those that didn't bunk off.
I don't know, but I'm going to guess art and music.
Yeah, it'll be art, pottery. Ours was always woodwork, which I hated with a vengeance. So it'd be something, easy, just to finish the week off, and hopefully get you so you didn't leave for the weekend with a bitter taste in your mouth that meant you weren't going to come back to do double maths on a Monday. So you're looking at your diary and you're putting these rocks in place to wear your hats. So maybe here I'm going to do sales. Maybe Friday afternoon I do finance. Friday mornings I do HR. Okay, Thursdays I do my sales meetings. Okay, so be looking and saying, right, I've got these hats to wear. I've got these activities. It's important but not urgent stuff to get done. Book it into the diary. And I would do this generally to start with on a spreadsheet, just color boxes in, or even just manually, just as I've done here. And once you're happy with what you've got, then transpose that into your Google Diary or your Outlook Diary. Okay. This is not about putting activities. This is the hat that you're wearing. You're at that point in the time. So you're always doing sales at that time. You're always doing marketing at that time. You're always doing finance at that time. Share that with your team so that they know that on a Wednesday afternoon you're doing finance. Don't interrupt me. If I don't really enjoy it, I just need to focus. Okay, so we've got to get good at putting it in the diary so other people know what you're doing. Yeah, and if somebody phones up and says, I'd like to talk to you about finance, fine. Well, look, the finance person isn't until Wednesday afternoon, but call back Wednesday afternoon, they'll be there. If you can, defer things to the time where you should be doing it. Okay, if you get this is probably one of the best, time management tools I've ever been taught. I religiously run this, but I run one that is also a future one. So where I want to be in 3 months, 6 months time. So it's not now, but it's what I'm working towards. Okay, and then that's in the diary. Then you work your day to day for that. And if you get a week where a client's phoned up or something's happened, fine. Okay, it goes out the window. But the week after, it's a default that you come back to. Okay, that way you're always feeling you're coming back, and the more you use this, the more you'll get that feeling of structure in your day to day. So those are my three key things: review where you are, skill fund matrix, book it in the diary, and then each week, what you've then got to look at the beginning of each week. So we do a thing called a 20-mile march. Now, this comes from I don't know if anyone recognises this guy. Ranjit, you were nodding there. Was that
Is it Amazon?
Amazon?
Yeah.
Amazon, yeah. So
Amazon, yeah.
Amazon. So he was the first man to the South Pole. He's in one of Jim Collins's books. I can't remember the last. It's the last book he wrote about sort of leadership and looking at the difference between, Scott of the Antarctic was seen as this great leader, and then Amundsen. Most people, unless you're Norwegian, don't really know who he is or what he did. But the definition really of a great leader is somebody that leads people to achieve the goal. Now, he did. Scott killed all of his people and himself. So that, to me, really doesn't mark you out as a great leader. If you kill your whole team on the pursuit of the goal. But one of Arnesen's key things was he came up with this concept of the 20-mile march. So every day when they were going across the South Pole, his goal was to achieve 20 miles in whatever weather there was. So when they started, the weather was great. Yeah. So they'd make really good progress. He would do 20 miles, finish around about, because obviously at that time the days are very long, finish around about 4 o'clock, make camp, stop. Scott, on the other hand, thought, weather's really good, let's plough on. So they would do 40 miles. Next day, they'd do 60, another 40 miles. So they'd think they were ahead of the game. But then the bad weather came. Yeah, Amundsen, bad weather, 20 miles. Next day, bad weather, 20 miles. Next day, bad weather, 20 miles. Scott, bad weather. Oh, look out. Oh, it's a bit grim out there. Oh, perhaps we were ahead of the game, so we won't do any this week. Next day, bad weather. Oh, God, it's still bad. Perhaps we won't do any more. We'll leave it another day. Then the next day was good weather. Oh, now we need to catch up. We need to catch up. So he just pushed his people too much. But by doing a little bit regularly is far more effective. So when we come to looking at our weeks and our to-do list, so we've got our default diary of when I should be doing things. At the beginning of the week, we want to make sure that we get enough in that week to fill that time, and no more. A little and often is far more effective than trying to cram it all into one day. So set yourself the time. I've got 2 hours to do finance. Right, what can I get done in 2 hours? Get it done, move on to the next thing. And it's that level of discipline that really helps you move things forward. And if you can't get everything done in the 2 hours, then either you've got to rejig your default diary to give you more hours, or you've got to start delegating this out to somebody else. So we're really thinking about that 20-mile march, that, right, each week, there's my default diary, there's my time slots to get things done. What do I put into those time slots? Get it done. And if you get it done quicker, great, fantastic. Either move on to something else or finish early. Okay, so that discipline of getting the structure and then putting the time and the activities in place is key. I've mentioned this one before, which is eating the frog. So in your default diary, get the stuff done that needs to get done. There's always something on the to-do list that you don't want to do. So you've been putting off. Book it into the diary. Make it like an appointment with your most prestigious client. If your most prestigious client said, I want to see you on a Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock, they would be in a diary and you would not be late for that appointment. Make those frogs, those things you don't want to do, just like that. And it's amazing, those things you've been putting off because oh God, it's going to take me forever. I don't really want to get onto it. You book it in, you get it done. A, you'll feel so much better, and B, you'll be amazed how quickly you actually get it sorted out. Okay, so really thinking, you know, what are my frogs? Book them in, you know, and find a good time to do your frogs. You know, generally for me, it's a Friday morning. I do my frog, yeah, and then if I've got my frogs done, go back to my smarty goals. I always set myself a little reward for doing that. And for me, as I said before, that's playing golf. Okay, so be clear what your frogs are to actually, you know, to work on, to put into your diary. So really, you know, I've studied time management for many years. I've read numerous books on it. You know, everything that I've come back to comes back to those same principles. You know, number one, get clarity around your goals. You know, if you don't know where you're going to be in 12 months' time, you can't work on how you're going to actually get yourself there. So, you know, for all of my clients, I know a number of you on the call, you know, we've always started with a plan. So the big goal, where does the business going to be in 5 years' time? And then every client has a 90-day plan. Because without that, you just can't do time management. It's just, I think it's impossible. You know, you're just reacting all the time. Look at your limiting beliefs. Okay, so look at those. You know, really recommend disc profiles. It's a really powerful tool to really understand who you are, who your team are, where your strengths, where your weaknesses are. Okay, and if you want some help with that, please just, you know, send me a message afterwards, email me. It's an online system. It's cheap as chips, but it's very, very powerful. And then, you know, undertake that time audit. Really record the time. Where's your time going? Do your skill fund and complete that default diary. You know, if you do those three things, yeah, you will start to get a better grip on your time. Now, sometimes, you know, you'll identify things that you need to fill it, you know, to bring in. So I know Ranjit is on the call. You know, we've done that, and he knows he needs to recruit another person to start delegating to. So that's what he's been working on for the past few months. Okay, once that person's in, yeah, then you've got to be prepared to put up with it until that person's in, and then you can start moving forward. So some of this does take time to do. You can't just wave a magic wand and suddenly get all the time you want. But if you don't have a plan, it ain't ever going to happen. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, is a definition of insanity. So we've got to start changing the way we look at our time and put it into place. But after all that's said and done, more often said than never done. So, you know, it is about taking action, do something. You know, really look at this. You know, if you want templates on the default diary, the time audit, the skill fund matrix, please just email me, and I'll quite happily send you, you know, copies of those out, so that you've got them and you can just complete them rather than create them from scratch. I'm more than happy to help you with those. So, and being a time management course, you know, finishing 3 minutes before time is always a good sign. It very rarely happens, I must admit. So I do have, you know, a couple of minutes to answer any questions. If anybody's got anything that I haven't covered from what you wanted to deal with, please do use the chat box, or just unmute yourself, and as long as everyone doesn't do it at the same time. So Luke, Luke Simpson, are you there? Did it take a while to get used to? Which bit were you asking that question on?
The diary part.
So
doing it by half an hour segments, it just seems very in depth. I don't know if I'll be able to get used to it straight away.
You got to remember, Luke. I was brought up an accountant, so you know that amount of detail I was easy with. I don't know if Luke Barnes is still on the call. I know he had to go and see a supplier, but Luke, who was on earlier, he's more of a high D person.
Yeah, we've both got a real similar profile.
Okay, so for high D, I would do morning and afternoon.
Yeah, he's a bit more D than I am, and we've both, are similar when it comes to planning and organisation.
Yeah, so for him, it was sort of, we did a morning, lunchtime, and an
I hope
afternoon.
that's the sort of D I thought you're thinking about, Luke. Not another type of D.
Oh, is that?
Yeah, sorry, my phone's like a bloody yo-yo.
So yeah, yes and no. You know, does it get time to used to? Yeah, the first default diary you do, you know, generally won't work. You know, bits of it will work, and then you'll go, oh, actually, doing that on a Wednesday afternoon, that just doesn't work. So you just change it, and it just adapts. I mean, I've been using them, you know, for 14 years, so you know, I can do one now in about 5 minutes, and I'm pretty good at sticking to it as well once it's done. But that's 14 years of practice at it. So
yeah,
I'm really good at the diary. I already do it for my home life, for my kids, for our house, for all of that. I am rubbish for work.
So what
I can apply it to my diary looks like that. It's color coded.
Yep.
I know which kids. We've got 4 kids. I know which kid needs to be where. I know when my shopping's being done. I know all of that, and it's all in there. So I'm really good at doing that for my home life. But when it comes to my work life, I'm also doing, I'm like an apprentice as well, so I have college work as well. I'm rubbish at applying those same principles to my work life, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
Like why I can't do the same. Because I'm quite an organised person, but I seem to maybe lack the motivation to do it in my work life than I do in my home life.
I would potentially then go back to your goal.
Yeah.
With family life and things, the goal is generally quite simple. In business, it's not always simple, and I'd start there.
Yeah, it's interesting.
What's my goal? What do I want my work life to look like? Because if you don't know what you want it to look like, then anything you come up with just isn't going to work.
Yeah, really interesting. I just thought, oh my God, that looks like my home life diary. And I am very organised when it comes to all of that.
If you're organising any big event with a deadline, you would be ultra. If I said to you, you've got to build this business, you know, I'm giving you 3 years by 31st of December 2023, this business must be done, and you must sell it for 2 million quid. Otherwise, it's taken off you, and you get nothing in return.
You'd have to have strategies and a plan to get there.
You'd put a lot more effort into your strategy and your plan.
Yeah.
But because no one gives you that goal, when does it need to be done? Well, it doesn't really matter, does it? When do your kids need to go to school? Doesn't really matter when they need to go to school. It could be any time. You wouldn't need a plan. Yeah, it's because when we're reactive, there's generally an external deadline to it. When it's our own, if we don't put that deadline on it, then it just drifts.
Yeah.
When's tea going to be ready? Sometime this week. Well, no, because I want tea at 6 o'clock.
Yeah. Yeah, I need to look at that.
And that's why you've got to have goals, you've got to have a plan, you've got to start being clear what your deadlines are. Without that, no, it's not just you. No one's able to do it.
Yeah.
Because that's how your brain works. Your brain works towards, it's a goal-seeking missile. It likes to know, right, this is what I'm trying to do by this time. I've got to go out. I've got to collect food before it gets dark. Before the nasty animals come out. That's we've had millions of years of evolution to that thinking. So play to that strength.
Yes.
Good. Well, it's been a pleasure, guys. I hope you've all enjoyed that. And say if there are any questions, posts, please give me a shout. And if you are interested in doing more of these courses in 2 weeks' time, we've got where are we? Back to marketing, actually. So we're back into our marketing workshop at second week of October, which I think is the 8th of October. 8th of October will be marketing. So please, do keep an eye out for those. Love to have you back, and love to have a chat with you if you want a bit more help with the goal setting and planning. It's been great having you, and we'll see you soon. Take care.
Thank you very
Thank you very
much.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.